Namaste. In one of her messages, the mother says that each avatar comes to add one more rung in the ladder of consciousness. We may say the ladder of evolution. And then she says, but men have a tendency to deify the avatars of the past in opposition to the avatars of the future. And then she says that now Sri Aurobindo, this has happened to all the past avatars. And now that Sri Aurobindo has come, his message meets the same resistance as of those who have preceded before him. But tomorrow will prove the truth of his purpose and his work will be done. Now, how does this relate with this prayer of May 18, 1914? Here we'll have a glimpse of the avataric work of Mother. And we'll also have a glimpse how she went beyond the rishis of the Upanishads. And I'm saying this very, very honestly with all my humility and knowing. When Mother came and told Sri Aurobindo about some of her experiences, and then he says that you have gone beyond the rishis of the Upanishads. And it's very difficult for traditional mindset to understand what it means. But when we read it here, not between the lines, not through the lines, not behind the lines, but the light that emerges from there, we'll see it very clearly, especially if one has read through the Vedantic literature thoroughly. Then one sees that what she is really describing and experiencing and commanding us is something far greater. And very simply, without ado about this philosophy, that system, she's doing it in a very simple way. And let's start the prayer. May 18th, 1914. Thou art the sole reality, O Lord. This is Ekameva Dvitiyam. But this reality, is it only up above? Or everything gets its reality because of that? That's the whole proposition in the Life Divine. That the world is real because Brahman is real. It has emerged from that. So we'll see that its practical implication. Thou art the sole reality, O Lord. Thou art omnipotence and eternity. So, of course, he is Sashvat, we can't even use the word forever because forever is still in relation to time. There is a timeless state and there is the eternal, there is a difference between the two. There is an endless time also where time keeps stretching endlessly. And he is the eternal. Now, the difference is eternal is the one who sets the rhythms of time into motion. So, Brahman extending himself becomes space, and Brahman, when it moves, Gati, Jagatyam, Jagat, he becomes, or it becomes, if you want to put it, or I prefer to put, she becomes time, the motions of time. So, thou art the sole reality, O Lord. So, he is reality. Is also Lord. This several times we'll see this Lord. And if you see Sri Aurobindo, one of his chapters in the Life Divine, how beautifully he describes Brahman, Maya, Purusha, Prakriti, Ishvara, Shakti. These are the three statuses on which we discover the one. So as Purusha and Prakriti is about the individual soul, the self, the Atma. As Brahman and Maya, it is the cosmic being who is being described and the reality which is, and the spirit and all that moves within it. And when the Ishvara is the transcendent, he is a being. He is not just a state of consciousness. And that's logical because many people have this problem with the word Lord. Because they start thinking in terms of God and a personal God. Personal or impersonal, the fact is if there is a perfect consciousness, it is consciousness. So obviously it is aware of itself. So by its very nature it is a being. You can't have perfect consciousness and yet say it is not a being, it is just a, impersonal state. And because all qualities derive from that being, therefore he is a being of infinite qualities. But that is not the subject of this prayer. She is addressing the Lord as sole reality. O Lord, thou art omnipotence and eternity. And he who is united with thee in the depths of his being becomes thy reality in its eternal and immutable omnipotence. So he who becomes one with the divine, in that Lord, he is the Ishvara, with all the powers and omnipotence. And the sign is that he becomes one with the divine completely, so completely, that he shares the eternal and immutable omnipotence. Not even shares, he becomes that inevitably. It does not mean that he will do arbitrary miracles. God does not do that. God is omnipotent, but it doesn't mean he answers every prayer and he is like a wolf, wish fulfilling. For that, there is Kalpavraksh and its place is in heaven. Not. I mean, people expect that somebody who has become one with the divine will do all kinds of miracles. God himself does not do, but he does the miracle which none can do. He doesn't say, okay, I ask a house and he gives a house. I ask my son for IIT and he gets you selected. But he does such a miracle that nobody can do. He, in a seed, he puts a tree. In a human thought, he sets in motion a vibration which can lead this thought to a doors of eternal. That's what the divine does. That's worthy of the divine. For all other things, there are gods and goddesses. There are plenty of them. And all kinds of vital forces. So she says he becomes in its eternal, he becomes thy reality in its eternal and immutable omnipotence. And then she uses a very interesting phrase, half a phrase. But for others, now who are the others? Who have not yet become. Oh, that implies all of us. So, becoming the Lord in all is immutable is Sri Aurobindo and the mother, let's put it like that. So what is the command for us? But for others, the command is, even while remaining in contact with thee, to turn their eyes and activity toward the earth. Such is the mission thou hast given them. So you see, I started with the prelude that she went beyond the yoga of the Upanishads. Of course, Sri Aurobindo also went, but look at it, this one single sentence or phrase. So there is a phrase in the Isha Upanishad which is one of the, it is the best if you ask me, though many people have tried to remove it from the canons of the Upanishads because it speaks of things which a typical Mayavad, illusionist Advaita cannot accept. And one such phrase is, Kurvan nevehe karmani jiji visheshathangsama. Doing verily works in the world, you must wish to live 100 years. Now, this verse has been interpreted by the illusionist Vedantists, which includes Shankaracharya, in this way that what it means is you have to do the work till you unite with the divine. And after that, many paths will say you have to do just continue with the works as a shesh karma till you die. There are certain karmic knots to be resolved. So you are exhausting the karmas. And a third purpose is, you can remain in the world, be like a guide, but otherwise nothing else is required. You are a free person. And there is a fourth thing which has been traditionally accepted, that what kind of karmas will you do? Religious karmas. Like you can do works of sacrifice. This, of course, is the crudest interpretation, that every day you will say, do homam. It's a karma. And for that you have to get ready, you have to eat your food, to sustain yourself. And people go to an extreme that you have to be a bhikshu so that you don't do any karma to earn yourself. So all kinds of things have been centered around this illusionist idea. So one of them being that works are necessary only in a preparatory way to unite with the divine. If we read only this sentence, it may seem that perhaps, maybe Mother is speaking of that. But for others, the command is, even while remaining in contact with thee, to turn their eyes and activity towards the earth. Such is the mission thou hast given them. But this will be half reading. Because she is saying, while remaining in contact with him, he is not identified, but he is in contact with the divine. So what is she saying so beautifully? Remember and offer. Keep the divine in the heart and continue to do the work. Rather, she is giving the command, turn towards the earth. Don't withdraw into some inner castle of samadhi and sannyas. She is just like those great ones. She is giving the command, turn to earth. That is the path you have to take. So then what happens after identification? What do? Now comes this. Here begins the difficulty. For everything depends upon the perfection of the various states of their being, and even after attaining the sublime identification. So she knows that human beings will say, okay, basically she is saying turn toward the earth like karma yoga. So this is where she is giving the essence of the yoga of the Gita. Yoga of the Gita differentiates itself from the traditional path of jnana and bhakti by you continue doing works in the world by remaining in contact with the divine, and you arrive at Jivan Mukta. This is where the grand, command of the Gita that you wake up Arjun, take the bow and arrow, shoot, but keep remembering me, but fight the great battle of life. So what happens when you are identified with the divine as well as when you are continuing the work? So what is that work? She is saying perfection of the states of being. What are the states of being? We have physical, vital, mental, and all the layers in between. They have to be perfected, prepared to receive the divine. She's not yet saying that, but she'll come to that. So this is the work which you have to do. One, when you are before contact, before identification, even after identification. But there is obviously a difference. That's why she is qualifying. When Sri Aurobindo was asked about this, several letters. One of them he says, there is the ordinary karma yoga of the Gita, where you do the works to simply discover the divine, find the divine, and through service, through devotion, through offering, consecration. So this is the ordinary karma yoga of the Gita, where you are doing works as a sacrifice, as a nishkam karma, yagyarth, lok sangraharth, for the march of civilization, not for any selfish motive. And as we do that, progressively, the bondage is of the vital and mental and physical. But Gita primarily releases us from the vital and mental bondages. Why? Because vital bondage is the sting of desire, mental bondage, the knot of the ego. But the real bondage is with matter and its deep-rooted subconscious thing from which it is emerged. So she says what they have to do, everything depends. Even after attaining the sublime identification, they must still work at perfecting the instrument which will manifest thy divine will. Now you see comes the challenge. One is perfection of the states of consciousness, second is the instruments. Instruments means everything upon earth. The last point of instrumentation is matter. Matter is the original condition for the divine manifestation. That's how Sri Aurobindo puts it. That's how matter has been brought out of himself, spirit and matter. So that's of course the subtlest matter. And then it becomes what it is today, and we have that beautiful chapter in the Life Divine Ascending series of substance, not of matter, matter. Sri Aurobindo describes all this in great detail. So then we have to perfect the instrument. Now there comes the difficulty. Now what are these instruments? Everything in human being, there is the brain and the thought. The inner instrument is the mind, antahakaran. The outer instrument, the senses must become perfect. They must transmit the pure vibration. Right now they distort. Mother says very beautifully how they distort. The moment we perceive something or someone, already our limbic system and the emotional being is already playing. So it suddenly adds a tag. Pleasant, unpleasant. Then the mind puts a tag. Good, bad. So what happens? By the time we receive, it enters into the complete cognition and perception. It is distorted. So our response is also distorted. That's why equanimity is important as a fundamental basis. Otherwise, we can never see truth. We'll always react to surface events, surface phenomena. Because instrumental nature is that. And same beautiful essay of Sri Aurobindo, The Delight of Works, he speaks about it. First know thyself as the instrument, then as the worker, then as the master. These three levels he speaks of. So, the instrument. Why? Because you can't manifest divine will without the instrument. She speaks about this also in one of the conversations, the double perfection. She says there is the lower perfection where you are working with the instrument. That's why we see physical education. Why? Because at the lower end, by means available to us, you are making the instrument as supple and strong to bear. This is by already the means that are available to us. By the agency of the mind, by the vital, by physical methods, by whatever methods are given available today. We make the instrument supple and strong. But there is a higher perfection where we engage with the higher states of being. And the two have to be brought together. Let's take an example. If we have to learn elementary music, so you don't need a master teacher. You just need a little bit swargyan and surka gyan. And you can learn, after that you can give nice songs, maybe, go to Indian Idol or some other and perform well, and it's because you have learned that much. Instrument is ready. But supposing one learns Nad Brahma from Shiva, oh, you can't express it if the instruments are not ready. It's okay, one can do Tandav Nat of the ordinary humankind. But Shiva's Tandav is not just about the steps, it's about that bhava. How do you bring that ability in the instrument to contain that bhav which Shiva has when he's doing Tandav? Without that bhav, you cannot do. That's what, how mother explained to, I think it was Sahanadi. What is the bhav of Radha when she is standing before the Lord? She must bring that bhav. And the instrument has to adapt to that. Otherwise, if the bhava is not there, there is a good dance, but nothing special. If the bhava is there and the instrument is not ready, we may have the bhav, but instrument is not capable. So, at both ends we have to work. So she speaks about must still work at perfecting the instrument which will manifest the divine will. See, she has already gone beyond the Upanishads. She has gone beyond the Gita. Actually, the Gita doesn't speak about perfecting the instrument. Not that Shri Krishna didn't know, but the time was not ready. But the Gita gives a cryptic hint in half a phrase. And that phrase is Yogaha karmashu kaushalam. Yoga is skill in works. And Sri Aurobindo describes this beautifully. He says, because when your mind is quiet, your vital is quiet, when your being is surrendered to the divine, then in fact all action comes from above. It just uses the instrumental personality. So it is perfect. It is skill. Skill from that. It's not skill which you get trained and develop. That's why the Gita insists on swadharma. Because when you do an action which is consistent with your swadharma, then it's no more work, but play. That line in Savitri where Sri Aurobindo describes the glory and fall of life, the greater world of life which he wants to bring down. He says, there all work was play and play the only work. So, if you take it literally, all work was play and play the only work. So everything was play of the divine, it's unfolding. Success, failure, all these go in the background. In the truest sense. So one has to perfect the instrument. This is the work. This is nowhere there in any of the yogic literature available till date. Saying this with all responsibility. Not perfection. There is this talk about Patanjali Yoga Sutra Asana. Why? Because the body must attain a good health and should be able to remain free of diseases as well as not become restless. So asana and pranayam is a preliminary to enter into meditation. If you look at the entire codification of Patanjali, that's how it is. Perfection of the instrument is not about its human possibilities, reaching its acme, but what is the divine possibility of an instrument. And that's where the challenge lies. Can a highest mantra be manifested through speech? That is perfection. Perfection is not learning the right intonation and everything about all the mantras that are available. That is human perfection, where one learns them perfectly, all that is available. But perfection implies, in this sense, receiving the mantra from the highest sphere and adapting the speech so that that mantra expresses itself. Any language, it could be French, English, Spanish, of course Sanskrit, any language, Hindi, any Tamil, because now the instrument adapts. Whatever is your language, it adapts to that. So here comes the difficult task. This is where the task becomes arduous. That's why this yoga is a challenging yoga, because it's not a world-shunning yoga. It's not even just a world-accepting yoga. World shunning yoga, ascetics, I always feel they're selfish people. And personally, I have this distaste. That's my personal thing. Ascetic movements, that's why when people donate money, I say, why are you doing this? This man wants to withdraw from the world. Let him withdraw peacefully and quietly. Why are you donating money to spread a philosophy which is going to ruin a whole civilization? Ascetic is after his own salvation. Please, he can go. It doesn't matter. He can be in a monastery or away from a monastery. That's his business. But to preach to the world the gospel of illusionism, and then you earn and you remain inside and withdraw from the world. So that is world shunning asceticism. This is the lowest. Then there is a world accepting yoga, which of course we see in the Gita, the Upanishads, and that's what created a mighty civilization. But this is not even that. World shunning nor world accepting only, but world transforming, which is a different thing. World accepting means I accept the world, and while working, I arrive at a state of Jivan Mukta. Question of transformation is out because there are the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. The instruments are framed by nature. They are limitations. But inwardly, I can arrive at a state where I am free. So that is world accepting yoga. But there is the world transforming yoga where the instrument must be transformed. At one place, the mother speaks about it very beautifully. I think it's 56th conversation. That there is a integral yoga and an integral, powerful integral yoga. So integral yoga is where as you are, you just offer it and you unite in all the different layers with the divine. Mental, consciousness, vital, physical, and the divine does what can be done. An integral, powerful yoga is where you develop the capacities of the being and then offer it to the divine. Or simultaneously offer it to the divine. So there was long back somebody who, here itself, I'd just come and I met a person. You just casually, everybody is a great being. So I just curiously asked, what were you doing? He said that I was going to do my graduation in history. Then I met somebody, whatever, connected from here. And he said, what is the point of doing it? You have to find the divine. Now you see great truth, but gives a twist. He said, I left it and came. I said, what a pity. Your instrument would have been so much more capable. When mother was asked, why should we study? She said, to develop the mind muscles. She didn't say everybody should study. That's a different thing altogether. But if we study, it is to develop. And that is why reading Sri Aurobindo, I have never understood this logic. I am doing the yoga, I don't need to read Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Because they are difficult. Precisely that's why we should read it, because they are difficult. Difficult means my mind is not receptive right now. It is blocked, closed. When I read them, there are two effects which will happen, three effects. One, I will enter into contact with Sri Aurobindo and the mother's consciousness. What can be more beautiful? Directly through the work we can enter, provided we don't get lost in the dictionary. And second effect is that when we read, slowly the opening and receptivity will come towards them. When mother was asked how to become receptive to you, one of the things she said, reading. Or rather the person asked, if I read your works, will it help in opening? Mother said, yes. Same thing Sri Aurobindo said. And the third, right now we cannot understand anything because the mind is not ready. Particularly because it's filled with stock ideas. Stock ideas especially, this is the problem of the Indian psyche. So well tuned, but it falls back upon the wonderful superstructure of civilization. So it becomes very difficult for us to move ahead sometimes. Of course, this is a wonderful background to have if you take it rightly. But we must know that in India, each avatar brings something new. That becomes a challenge. So everybody ultimately says, what Vedanta is this? As I was saying the other day, Sri Aurobindo has used the word realistic Vedanta. Where do you find this term, Yatharthvadi Vedanta? So here he is saying you have to turn to the instrument to make it perfect. That's where the difficulty comes. Now you see how the mother is looking at the instrument. It's a wonderful lesson in humility. Her paintings were displayed in the louvre. And if you can, if I may say, which people do not know, that in music it is she who has brought a completely new music for the earth. People don't realize its value because she was not the kind to say, "Oh, see, I have discovered a new music. Please hear me, and you'll feel so nice." Nothing. She left it to us to discover. Neither Eastern nor Western. And yet you can find notes there. But when you hear the music, it's something amazing. She has given names. Marching in search of the soul. Quiet power. Concentration. Aspiration in the physical. There was a time, 3 series, I would put that music and do exercises every day. किसी के बहाने something will happen through this music, and it's so amazing. That music you cannot, put in any slot. That mother who has done this and many other things. Education system, this itself is a grand experiment. She's the one who gave such wonderful ideas. Golkund, Sri Aurobindo said it's the mother's yoga in the material world. Many, many things. And what is she saying? Occultism, philosophy. She didn't even care to keep those volumes of the Cosmic Review where she used to write. Very, a philosophy which is of the highest kind. All that she came and she offered to Sri Aurobindo, or rather completely they were gone, because now something new has to come. So she writes, this is where the task becomes arduous. Everything seems to me mediocre, insufficient, neutral, almost inert in the present instrument, which thou makest me call myself. This was one of the things she told Sri Aurobindo when she came. One was that, what is this trance that they speak about? I have never experienced it. And Sri Aurobindo says, nor have I. Now you see, if you just quote this much, it can create a great misunderstanding. Then he clarified. He said, you have gone beyond the rishis of the Upanishads. 2 places he says this. One is here. And he says that basically what they call as trance is when you withdraw from the surface consciousness and you experience that state within. But she has experienced it while waking all the 4 aspects of the Brahman. And this is the truth they bring out in the life divine. That's how they reconcile everything. That if the divine can experience transcendent and the cosmic and the individual realities simultaneously, the inmost, the inner and the outer, so can man by becoming one with the divine. That is the logic, is that realization. So, that he says that, well, you have gone beyond, you are able to experience that while waking. Another place where he says this is, since we are at it, when she writes that prayer, I think it is 26th November, while she's in Japan. She experiences the body being seized and she goes further and further. And ultimately she sees the earth uniting with the Supreme. And Sri Aurobindo says traditional interpretations of the Vedic yoga, they will not accept this possibility. But it's there in the Vedas as a root. She has not used the words because she's not into that literature. Like a clean slate, she started as a positivist. Only what you can touch, see, hear, feel, that is true. So he says that modern yogis will not even accept that as a possibility. And then she said, second thing, why everything in me is very mediocre? And Sri Aurobindo says, it is a good thing. Why? He says, because you have to excel in one thing by specializing. And specializing means a focused concentration on one part. It's at the expense of other parts. So you'll see people who are very highly scholarly, I won't use the word intellectual, they are not synonymous. An intellectual has a free intelligence. He is not tied to all the formulas of books or this or that. True intellectual is one who has a free intelligence and a universal intelligence. So, but scholarly. You see the heart becomes so dry. You just wonder, you have to strain yourself even to listen to an academic discussion. It's very good for sleeping. Some sleeping pills, one of them is listen to a highly scholarly academic discussion. You won't have to, you can get rid of sleeping pills. After some time, you'll doze off. because, and then Sri Aurobindo will look so simple and beautiful because it's not of that category. We are expecting that, probably, that he will write according to this Vedantic view, according to nothing. There are no such references. Only in the beginning you will see one quotation from either the Gita, the Upanishad, or the Vedas. But otherwise, all flows so freely, so beautifully. It's a free universal intelligence, stilled consciousness, completely receiving from the supramental infinities, the absolute wisdom pouring through word and speech. This is Sri Aurobindo's writings. So the instrument has to be capable of adapting to it. It's not easy. It can create. There can be errors either which way. And the instrument was so perfect. There were great people who noted this could be a, error, transmission error. And Sri Aurobindo is transmitting. So mother has scolded. We know how she said not even a comma has to be changed in Sri Aurobindo. So here comes this. And why everything is mediocre? So sometimes being a jack of all trade has its own advantage. Because then you are growing in a many-sided way. And the more I am united with thee, the more do I realize the mediocrity of its faculties and its manifestation. Amazing. Naturally. If you are just learning some ABC of music from some musician, he'll encourage you and say, wow, so nice. And you will feel very good, arey wah. But if Shiva comes to teach you, you had it because you suddenly realize you have received the knowledge from the Shiva, but your body, your feet, even his damru, you cannot capture that note. It is so. See, damru is a very interesting instrument. Unlike tabla and others, you are just shaking your hand, and what a perfection there is. You are supposed to bring out all the notes. How is it done? So this is where you have this instrument not being ready. The more you unite with the divine, the more we realize it's not ready to manifest. The further we are from the divine, the more we are puffed up. I am an instrument. But the more you come in contact, you see, my God, how far this is from what can be. So many inadequacies. Sleep, for example, the brain gets fatigued beyond a point. The heart is not able to stretch. So all these situations in life, I take them as exercises. Your brain stretches. When you read Sri Aurobindo, the brain is getting its right kind of exercise. Stretching, becoming wide, plastic, strong. Otherwise, sometimes we lose the thread. You have to go back. What was Sri Aurobindo saying? But then you develop that all-rounded consciousness. The heart, through all the challenges of life, emotional, the heart is getting exercise. It's a gymnasium. Vital, many kinds of, aspects which will come in. Choices, lures, attractions. So it's wonderful. These are all exercises. And the more I am united with thee, the more do I realize the mediocrity of its faculties and its manifestation. Everything in it seems to me an incorrigible approximation. It is like coming close, and yet it is not able to pierce one particular step. See, this incorrigible approximation is that. It comes to a point beyond which the instrument must perfectly adapt to the higher consciousness. And that breakthrough. You see how Sri Aurobindo's instrument, look at it, that how he was able to keep awake. And that's what I feel. Sometimes you just see this aspect, you know for sure that God only can do it. Once he passingly wrote this to one of the disciples, that if you see the way I am doing correspondence, even the heart of a hard, rock-like disciple will soften. And you will understand, just if you see what this is being done through the body. Look at the brain of Sri Aurobindo. What kind of brain this must be. Just the bodily instrument I am speaking of. Look at Sri Aurobindo's hands. coming straight on the typewriter, 64 pages of Arya every month. How was he doing it? What kind of instrument it must be? Look at his feet. Why was he walking for 8 hours? Because all that he is receiving, feet are the sign of the inconscient that tends to, offer resistance. So people try to imitate Sri Aurobindo by shutting themselves into a room. I tell them, do that later. Just walk for 2 hours continuously every day. We'll talk about what kind of instrument that he took 1 kilogram of opium just to make sure that he can digest every poison. He had to take much more bitter poison of the whole world. Just the instrument part. What that instrument must have been, what it must have undergone. Of course, we cannot imagine the mother at 70. She left tennis when she came here. And then at 70, she picks up again. By the time we say, okay, we have played enough and it's okay. So this is where we see that how she speaks about training the instrument. And that's why here we see that there is so much emphasis on physical education and all-round development. Inner thing, anyway, she will do if we are open and have the right inner attitude. But for the outer thing, both are required. The human being must do his own little bit, and then there is the divine consciousness which flows. And if that cannot disturb me in any way, everything in it seems to me an incorrigible approximation. And if that cannot disturb me in any way, because naturally one may feel, sometimes, why this instrumental nature is not ready? I'm again and again overtaken by desire, surprised by lust, fears, all these things come in. So how to really handle that? Why it can disappoint anybody? Human nature is prone to that. Now she comes and gives a remedy. And if that cannot disturb me in any way, it is because the true self is lying at thy feet. True self is the individual soul lying at the divine feet. Or nestling in thy heart. Or conscious with the eternal and immutable consciousness. Look at that threefold realization. True self is lying at your feet. Or it is nestling in your heart. It is living within the divine, in the divine. Or it has become one, fully conscious of the immutable consciousness, which is the Brahman. So she is simultaneously aware. The individual soul is in the divine. And the true self is surrendered at the feet of the divine. And she as herself is fully conscious of the eternal and immutable consciousness. And looks at the whole manifestation with a smile. It is simultaneous. It is not one or the other. That's why we cannot understand the divine. That's what Sri Aurobindo calls the logic of the infinite is different from the logic of the finite. Logic of the finite is either this or that. You cannot be blue and grey and green at the same time. Though nature itself contradicts it. All of them is present in the white. But okay, it may be present in the white, but in manifestation it's not possible. But if you were to experience the world from the point of view of the white light, it will say, I am present in everything. So, that is the challenge that we have, that we get lost here or we are absorbed in the trance. And we create a division between world and God. But how God experiences the world, He doesn't say while experiencing the world or acting in it, that, I am not God now. He is the divine and He is also this. So this and that. The mother says that the new age that we are entering in, this is the age. Not either or. Not this or that. And then she says, but this and that. Simultaneous. So there is the simultaneous experience. So on one side, she is looking at the instrument, sees it's mediocre, she is working towards it. Then inwardly she is nestling in the heart. And then and looks at the whole manifestation with a smile of patient and understanding benevolence. She's simultaneously seeing from that height and smiles as to a child of patient. Be patient, it takes time. She asks us to be patient. And before we can become candidates of supramental patience, because it is going to take time, we can make a program of reading Sri Aurobindo and the Mother completely in this life. Patience is required for this. Yeah, very simple program. One of the best preparations. It doesn't require a lifetime. But still, at least, if one reads it with full ardor, 5 years, maybe maximum 10 years, if you include agenda also. So, the sooner we start, the better it is. It doesn't take long. All the works. At least make a reading. So, she says it looks at the whole manifestation with a smile of patient and understanding benevolence. Look at the difference, how she has chosen the words. Benevolence is like you understand, this is what it is. But when you add understanding, it adds a different flavor. Benevolence is when a child has done an error and you say, bacha hai. We used to have. But look at it, like it understands simultaneously that you are a child. At the same time, you will grow into a man. You know where the error is coming from and you know how to rectify it. So look at the beauty. Sometimes with one word, Mother and Sri Aurobindo give a whole lot of meanings. How I understood this understanding benevolence is when in India, sometimes, I think it's everywhere, but in India I know, when children sometimes say words with a little, what is called totla, like not a stammer, but it's not exactly the. For instance, for pani, they'll say pali, something like that. And parents find it very cute. Oh, so cute. This is benevolence. But the other is pali. Pani, matlab you understand, but you are also simultaneously rectifying the movement in a nice way. One of the things which I used to advise to parents, that yes, it's very enjoyable. But if they say Pali and you will give water, you are fixing this word in the mind. Where you understand that yes, the child, but he has to also pick up this, of course, as an aside, parenting skills. So when he learns and say it beautifully, happily, what is that which would be understanding without benevolence? Where he says, this is not how you speak. No. You understand, take the joy of it. At the same time, you bring out the deeper possibility. That's what compassion is, incidentally. There's the difference between kindness and compassion. Compassion knows the true cause of suffering and leans down to heal it. That's compassion. Kindness is, look at this person, he is shivering in cold, let me give some blanket. That's kindness, good. But compassion knows that even in this man, there is a wisdom that operates. How this very thing can become an occasion for the great journey and the great discovery. So we'll just read this prayer fully again, then we'll stop. May 18th, 1914. Thou art the sole reality, O Lord. Thou art omnipotence and eternity. And he who is united with thee in the depths of his being becomes thy reality in its eternal and immutable omnipotence. But for others, the command is, even while remaining in contact with thee, to turn their eyes and activity towards the earth. Such is the mission thou hast given them. So without losing contact. It's not just doing work, remaining in contact with the divine and then turning toward the earth. What we have to do through this work, here begins the difficulty. It's not just the outer work, but the perfection of the instruments. Here begins the difficulty, for everything depends upon the perfection of the various states of their being, and even after attaining the sublime identification, they must still work at perfecting the instrument which will manifest thy divine will. So the work is twofold, perfecting the states of consciousness as well as perfecting the instrument. This is the mission of action upon earth. And through this, divine work is done automatically, inevitably. Then we don't have to worry. But if we take these three things together, contact with the divine, perfection of our inner states, perfection of the instrument, then we don't have to worry what is the work you want me to do. Whatever one does will become the divine work. Sarva karmani. Everything seems to me, this is where the task becomes arduous. Everything seems to me mediocre, insufficient, neutral, almost inert in the present instrument which thou makest me call myself. So, open to the divine will to manifest it, but is the instrument ready? And the more I am united with thee, the more do I realize the mediocrity of its faculties and its manifestations. It's very amazing. Every work that the mother gives, she gives everything necessary to make it perfect. I know instances like that. One of them, Chandradeepji, he was given the task of sorting out the letters. It's, looks like commonplace thing. When the letter he put come to him, he would just sort out. He doesn't need to look at the letter. He would know for whom it is there. He'll keep putting in their slots. Then she speaks about in the granary and in the dining room. The hand should be so perfect that you don't have to measure. Whatever you want, say you want to take out 10 grams, put your hand and take out. Not with tatolna. You take out. You don't have to grope, estimate by the mind, and it should be exactly that. And Mother says that these are things which can be developed. So that means there is consciousness in the hands. It's not about what's the big deal. Yes, it is a deal. Because you are developing consciousness in the hands. So any work she gives actually, it becomes a means for developing that instrument. And all work involves the brain, involves the heart. There is no work which is done in isolation. Everything comes together. Of course, it involves the body, the vital, everything. And the more I am united with thee, the more do I realize the mediocrity of its faculties and its manifestation. Everything in it seems to me an incorrigible approximation. And if that cannot disturb me in any way, it is because the true self is lying at thy feet, or nestling in thy heart, or conscious with thy eternal and immutable consciousness, and looks at the whole manifestation with a smile of patient and understanding benevolence. Namaste.